Got another great project in the shop. It's a beautiful mid-century modern maple rocking chair that needs a little bit of TLC. We've got some loose arms. We're missing a plug here in the back splats. Some of these splats are a little bit loose. The top crest is a little loose. The legs are definitely loose. And we're missing a stretcher. So, great project in the shop. So follow along and see how we take care of this great chair and bring it back to life. Some of the first things we notice as we start to take this chair apart is there have been attempts at repairs in the past. We've got a drywall screw here with some PVA glue leaking out, another type of wood screw here with more glue. So we're going to take this apart pretty gently, not lose any of the pieces, but then also try not to break any of the pieces as we're going through. So the unfortunate part is there were some repairs that were trying to be made, so we'll overcome those, repair any damage that was caused by it. But let's start taking this chair apart. You're probably saying to yourself, why is he using a socket? Well, the reality of it is, it's a socket with a flathead screw bit blade on the bottom. And what I find is I get a better torque when I'm trying to remove old screws by using the ratchet set. What it does, it has a tendency to not strip the socket head because I can apply the downward pressure and then get the turn on it. And then once I've cracked it loose, I'll either finish it off with the ratchet or I can come back with a screwdriver and finish twisting it out. These are definitely the original screws that went in the bottom of this leg of this chair, and they're a little bit worn. So what I'll do is I'll put them in the machinist vise. I'll get a very thin file and I'll cut the slots just a little bit longer or a little bit deeper and cleaner so that way when I put them back in, they won't strip out. But we're getting there. At some point, repairs that were made to this, someone used some PVA glue or wood glue. And typically I can use vinegar if it's hide glue, but that won't work on PVA glue. So what I'm going through right now is just chipping away any excess glue that was there. Will give me a chance to hopefully open it up a little bit, maybe shoot some vinegar down for the hide glue that was there from the original manufacturer, and then gently try and pop it out. If it is only PVA glue, the only other option will be to gently get it removed, or we could potentially apply some heat, which is always my last resort because heat can definitely damage a finish. But I'm going to keep chipping away at some of this old glue and see how far we get. So we've got the chair completely disassembled, which is a good thing. So there are a couple of the joints that we couldn't get apart because they were pretty tight. So this one's actually tight. This repair that was made with a screw and some PVA glue, with the screw out, it's still pretty tight. I've cleaned up the glue from the edges. And this one is a very tight glue joint as well too. So we're going to leave that alone. And last but not least, this arm is really tight, so we're going to leave that alone too. So our next step is going to be to go through and all of the ends of the splats and the dowels, as well as the inserts in the chair, in the crest rail, etc. We're going to clean out all the old glue. And I use a set of files, some rasps, and some chisels and get it all cleaned out. And that's our next step. Then once we get it all cleaned out, we'll then move on to the glue up. But first things first, let's clean up some glue. This glue hole, there was a gap between the end of the dowel stretcher and the hole. So the person who tried to repair this thought, oh, I'll just put more glue in. So I've chiseled out quite a bit of it and it's cleaned up pretty well. But what I'm going to use an undersized Forstner bit now. I'm going to put it on reverse, kind of go in that hole. And just clean it out just a little bit more, because what I want to make sure that when I glue the new stretcher in, that I have good wood to wood contact. And we've got most of it out. We'll use a rasp now and just clean up the edges. The splats in the back of the chair attach to this support and they're screwed in place. Because we don't want to mix match grain and glue it, that's why they manufacture used screws. Well, remember the slats were a little bit loose, so because the only thing holding them in is the glue at the bottom at the seat, and then at the top, the screw. What I'm going to do is take an 1/8 inch dowel and just fill these holes just a little bit, and put some PVA glue in, glue these little dowel rods in there, because then what will happen is the screws that, if the holes are worn, will have something to bite into. So that's just a little minor touch to make sure that those back splats stay solid. So I've just nipped off some little 1/8 inch dowels. I'm going to squirt a little bit of glue in the hole. And then just put these little dowel plugs in. And again, what it will do, it will assist, have something for those screws for the back splats to bite into. So we've got a missing stretcher that needs to be replaced. And the wood is definitely maple. So what we've done is we've obtained some maple block from a local supplier. And we took the measurements that we need. So we know that the stretcher is 1 inch and the overall length is 13 7/8. And we need to account for the dowel. So we're going to turn this on the lathe. But the first thing I'm going to do is take this block and cut it down to roughly 1 1/8 inches square. And then that way make it easier to turn it on the lathe. So we've done a dry fit, and it seems to line up just right. So I had to adjust the tenons that go into the stretchers just a little bit because they were oversized, but I just used a rasp to do that. But lines up pretty well. I'm going to, again, adjust the angle so that it's the same as this one. But now what we're going to do is we're going to do a two-step glue up. We'll glue up the base first, and then we'll work on the back because it's going to be the most important part. So let me take this apart, and then we'll go to the glue up. The glue up of the base is complete. So now what we're going to do is we're going to glue on the back splats as well as the arms. And glue ups are always a stressful process. So you may see all of it, you may not. But we're going to go through, we're going to use hide glue. And we're using hide glue because it's reversible. So if you're making a repair of a piece that's broken, a piece of wood that's broken, you use PVA glue. For any joints in a chair, you always use hide glue. So I'm just going to fill it into all the holes and then come back with a brush and make sure I have good contact. And then I will also put hide glue on the end points. So there's going to be a lot of pieces to this glue up. So we're going to go through and make sure we get them all, and we're going to use a ton of clamps to put this together. We got good squeeze out on this. So one of the important things when you're doing glue ups is you're going to have glue squeeze out. And I'm a firm believer that you want to clean that up as quickly as possible so that you're not cleaning it up once it's dry, because then it can actually damage the finish. Now, usually when I'm working in the shop, I'm working alone. But today, I've got a helper. And the helper's job is going to be to clean up all this glue. So Wyatt, come on over. I want you to go all the way around this and make sure you get all the glue drips wiped up for me, okay? Okay. And while you do that, I'm going to work on the other leg, or the other arm. So I've saved all the screw parts. I labeled them, so I'm going to start putting the screws in. Awesome. Thank you, Wyatt. We'll come back afterwards and we'll have you do some more cleanup, okay? the arms on, screws into the seat, screws into the back. These back splats are down tight. And I'm going to go through once again and continue to clean up the glue as we go, because it makes for a easier job later. But this has come together very nicely without any issues. And then this back splat, or the press rail, did not have any glue. So I'm not going to add any glue. But what I am going to do is just screw this press rail back on. And then we'll come back and we will put in the missing the dowel plugs that we took out. And there were a couple that were missing and a couple that got broken when we were taking them out. But then we will put some more on. We'll do some touch up. And we'll do some touch up along the chair itself, where there's some dings or nicks that we can take care of. So I'm going to finish gluing this up. All right. Get those second hands in the shop. Hold that right there for me, kiddo. Let's tighten that up. All right. How's that? Is that better? Mm-hmm. Okay. Any place where we glued. So along these joints in the back. Nope, the legs should be okay because I did those yesterday. All right, a few over here. All right, these are nice and tight so they won't fall off on you. Good job. All right, you keep going. So I've gone through and I've wiped down this entire chair with paint thinner to make sure that we got any dirt and grime off of it, made sure that all of our glue drips were gone. I'm now going through and I'm applying some feed and wax wood polisher conditioner, which is beeswax and olive oil. I'm sorry, beeswax and orange oil. And really what that does, it just brings the luster back to the chair. And it's a wax and it really should be applied every so often, but we'll let this sit for a little bit, let it glaze over, and then come back with a clean, dry cloth and wipe it back. But we're pretty much finishing up. Now, one of the things that, if you remember, one of these buttons was missing, and a couple of them got damaged when we were removing them. So what I did was I had 8 that did not get damaged, so I made sure that those 8 which were original to the chair, got placed in the conspicuous location. Where I needed to replace them, I kind of tucked them back in the edges where they won't be seen. So that way we have the original facing out, and any place else, you just won't see it, but it still fills the holes. And I touched those up with the same stain that I used for the cross piece. So I'm gonna let this sit, then we'll come back and we'll buff out this wax. And the repair of this rocking chair is complete. So we had a bunch of work that we had to do to the chair. So the arms were loose, the crest rail was loose, these splats were loose. We had a missing stretcher across the front here. So we dismantled the entire chair, labeled all the parts, of course, beforehand, so we knew how to put it back together again. And then over on the lathe, we crafted a new stretcher to match the one in the back, stained it to match the rest of the chair as close as we could. Then we went through and glued everything back together again, and then applied a final coat of wax to the chair. So thanks for following along in this video. I hope you learned something. If you have any questions, please post them below.